Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to my world of stocks. We've got a bit of an update today. I'm doing this in a little bit of like a live format, so you'll be able to see what I'm touching on the computer screen. And we're just going to kind of go through this because we've got some breaking news on Nvidia stock and Intel stock, both of which I am actually a shareholder of. So just kind of a fair warning, full disclosure, I do own both stocks. So maybe a little bit of bias there, but I always try to be unbiased. I'm just going to share my own personal opinion on what's going on here. But basically, Nvidia is investing now into Intel stock, which as a shareholder, I think is a very good sign. I actually made many videos in the past talking about Intel stock. And I always said, look, this is a high risk type of stock. But the reason why I was buying some of it myself, and it's not a huge position, I have a much larger position in Nvidia. That's really like a core holding of mine. Intel is more of a small kind of, it was a little bit of a speculative play for me. But the reason why I bought Intel stock was because I just saw the stock getting hammered. It was getting beaten into the ground. This used to be a world leader in chips, and it still is in many ways, especially obviously on the CPU side, not so much the GPU side, where Nvidia, of course, just completely dominates. But Intel is still very strong on the CPU side. And while GPUs have, of course, become much more important for things like, artificial intelligence, especially during this whole AI boom, uh, you know, NVIDIA still uses NVIDIA still relies, I'm trying to think of how to word this, but they still rely on CPUs to kind of feed some of that data through to the GPUs, and then the GPUs handles a lot of the really hard processing for things like AI inference and content creation, and of course GPUs are very big for gaming and stuff like that. But CPUs are still very important, guys, and one of the reasons why I bought Intel stock is because it was mostly just for that, for having this, dominant legacy player in CPUs that I feel was just kind of being left behind by investors, but that still serves an important role in overall computing and advanced computing too. And so it seems that I'm not the only one who feels this way, because now Nvidia themselves are actually buying Intel stock. And not only that, but even America, the United States of America, has actually invested in Intel stock too. And another big reason, and this honestly, this is just as important for me in terms of why I initially purchased some Intel stock, is because of the fact that they actually build chips too, which there isn't too much of going on in the West. There is, of course, in Taiwan Semiconductor building tons of chips, but because of Taiwan's connections and conflict with China, I always felt like it would be important to have a more Western type of player building chips as well. And that's what Intel does with their foundry business. Now, their foundry business has been a bit of a disaster. It's not been going well, and they've fallen behind to, of course, Taiwan Semiconductor. But I just felt like they still have potential to kind of turn things around and to still stay competitive. And I also feel that the overall market is still going to be large enough for there to be multiple players, Intel included. And again, I seem to not be the only one who feels this way, as we're now seeing America and Nvidia and even SoftBank investing billions of dollars into Intel stock and taking huge stakes in the company. So let's just run through what's going on here. That's just kind of my quick little intro. It's not that I'm extremely confident about Intel stock. Again, I actually thought of it as a bit of a spec stock. I think it's a little risky, and I have much more faith in a company like Nvidia, which is why I hold a much larger position. But I just felt like with the stock price being beaten down as heavily as it was, I just felt like it was worth the risk taking a chance on it. So let's jump into the breaking news here. I'm recording this early on. We're in Thursday morning here. I'm like losing track because I've been so busy lately. I've been working on several videos, by the way, more videos coming out this weekend. But anyway, we got some news here today that Nvidia is taking a position in Intel. So let's take a look at the stocks here. So as you can see, Nvidia is up about 3.5% today. Not a whole lot, but obviously this isn't as big of a deal for Nvidia as much as it is for Intel, who is really going to be the primary beneficiary from this. But I'll actually explain why I think both companies are going to benefit greatly from this in just a second. But just to kind of get the stocks out of the way here, Intel stock today is now up 28%. I think at one point it was up like 30%. But yeah, they're having a fantastic time here. And of course, when you take a look at their historical performance, part of the reason why they're up so much right now is because they were heavily beaten down for a while, trading at, the lowest prices of the past decade. And you can see in the past too how they used to have times of dominance, but have really just fallen off a cliff ever since. So right now they're bouncing back for the past week, up around 30% here. And Nvidia, of course, just continues to trade at an all-time high. Over the past 10 years, it's up like 28,000%. So Nvidia just continues to perform extremely well. But let me just kind of get through some of the facts here, and then I'll share my opinion on everything going on. So from CNBC, Intel surges 24%. Again, I think at one point they were up like 30%. As Nvidia is set to invest here $5 billion in chipmaker to co-develop data center and PC chips. Of course, this is following the Trump administration in taking a 10% stake in the chipmaker back in August. It was very recent, obviously. And the investment is still subject to regulatory approvals, but it does not appear to include the manufacturing of NVIDIA chips with Intel's foundry. Now, the reason why that's a big deal, that's a little bit of a disappointment, I would say, probably to Intel's shareholders. Now, we still have to see if that remains the case. We're not exactly sure yet. I think Intel and NVIDIA are going to hold a joint press conference or announcement later today. We'll see what they have to say about this. But the reason why Intel shareholders were hoping that Intel could be building NVIDIA chips is because Intel's foundry business has been a major headwind more recently. And in order for the stock to perform well long term, you need to turn that into a tailwind. And one of the ways to do that is for Intel's foundry business to be manufacturing, building the most advanced chips out there. And who's more advanced than NVIDIA? Who's more dominant than NVIDIA? So you want to be building NVIDIA's chips if you want to have success with your foundry business. But the thing about this new deal here is that this may open the door for that in the future. We don't know what this could lead to. Just the fact that Intel and NVIDIA are going to have a closer, better relationship now, I think is a big deal. And NVIDIA actually owning stock means that they benefit directly from Intel doing well too. And again, NVIDIA is really the leader in GPUs. Intel is the leader in CPUs. There's really no reason why I think both companies can't have some success. Excuse me, guys. I had a energy drink earlier, so a little bit of carbonation. But yeah, there's no reason why both companies can't have strong success together and just kind of mutually benefit from the deal, which I will touch a little bit more on here in just a second as well. But let's just finish up here with some of the news. So what else does it say here? So NVIDIA is investing at a price of $23 a share. Again, Intel right now is at 31, so already the deal is paying off greatly for NVIDIA. Now, when talking about the deal here, NVIDIA CEO said the historic collaboration tightly couples NVIDIA's AI and accelerated computing stack with Intel's CPUs and the vast x86 ecosystem, a fusion of two world-class platforms together. We will expand our ecosystems and lay the foundation for the next era of computing. Okay, so why is this a big deal? Well, there's several points here. I actually just kind of jotted down some of my quick thoughts on why I think this is going to benefit both companies. But essentially, first off here, let me just get this one out of the way. So the most obvious thing is that this is going to inject $5 billion worth of capital into Intel's foundry business. This is going to help Intel expand their foundry business with, billions of dollars. And the reason I say that is because you might be wondering, well, is NVIDIA buying Intel stock in the open market, or is Intel actually issuing new shares and selling that to NVIDIA, which would then make them right away a beneficiary and be able to collect that money? Well, the CNBC didn't specify that, but I did some digging. I found this article from Reuters here, and this one mentions specifically that the stake will instantly make NVIDIA one of Intel's largest shareholders, giving it roughly 4% of the company after new shares are issued to complete the deal. So that tells me that Intel is actually issuing new shares, selling it directly to NVIDIA, collecting money from it, and that's going to help Intel expand their foundry business. So that's one way that it's already just, I think, going to benefit Intel. And on the Nvidia side, it's already benefiting them too because Intel stock soared. So they're already their stock is already worth more than it was when they purchased it. So that's already benefiting both companies. Now, the financial flexibility for Intel, again, I think it's mostly going to be helpful for building out the foundry business, but it might also help them reduce debt. They may be able to spend some of that on investing in some research and development. So there's just several things they could do with that money. Now, where it gets more interesting, I think, is on the technological side of things. When I first heard this news, I think the first thing that just kind of popped into my head was, well, doesn't if you own a computer, can you already just have the latest Intel chip and the latest Nvidia chip? So why would it matter that the two companies are working together if you could already have both on the same computer, right? Like you might, if you want the best performing computer, you probably get what, like an Intel i9 processor. You get the latest Nvidia GPU, RTX, whatever you can probably afford at this point, because these chips can get pretty expensive. But yeah, you're gonna get the latest Intel CPU. You're gonna get the latest discrete Nvidia GPU, and you're gonna have both of them in your computer, and you're gonna be using both companies' technologies. However, where it starts to get interesting is that now you're going to have these two separate chips integrated into each other, and I believe being sold as a complete package here, which is going to probably drive down price, which is great for consumers. But more importantly, it's going to provide all kinds of benefits like better optimization, faster communication. NVIDIA mentioned that they'll be using their NVLink technology to have them communicate with each other much faster and better. And by the way, they already do that, but now being integrated together into one package is going to improve that. So you're going to have better AI inference, you're going to have faster, gaming and content creation, all the things that we use computers for. And not just that, but you're also going to have, I think, probably much better efficiencies. So that's probably going to improve battery life for things like laptops, where that becomes more important too. So it's not just about power, but it's also going to be about efficiency. Of course, when you're talking about AI data centers and that stuff, yeah, it's going to be mostly about power, but that's of course going to benefit from it. Possibly sharing memory, just having all kinds of better optimizations, faster communications, like we said. But then on the laptop side of things, for consumers, you'll be able to probably make thinner devices, smaller ones, and have better battery life, and you might be able to drive down costs. So there's many ways that can benefit both companies there as well. And then on top of that, you're going to have Intel designing their x86 CPUs specifically optimized for NVIDIA's AI infrastructure platforms, which not only will help Intel lock in a major customer here, but it's also going to keep x86 relevant within the market of artificial intelligence. So it's a little bit of staying power too for a legacy player like Intel, while optimizing everything for the new generation of platforms coming from NVIDIA. So again, I just think it's like a bridge here. Like we're bridging a gap between legacy and more relevant new technologies. And that's why I think it benefits both companies greatly. And then finally, I'll just mention that I think that the collaboration helps probably Intel a lot more, just in the sense that they're not going to have to worry so much about competition. Whereas now they can focus more on what they already do best, right? Like if you're Intel, do you really want to pivot away from your dominant market share in CPUs to try to go up against a juggernaut like NVIDIA in discrete GPUs? I mean, you still can, but I think being able to focus on your CPU leadership, collaborate with a partner like NVIDIA to benefit from some of their strengths too, keep your technologies relevant, get some capital, and get some trust, and be able to invest in and expand on your foundry business, I think is probably the safer, smarter decision here, which leads us to the US investment, because the US invested, let me scroll down here, I believe they spent about $9 billion into Intel common stock. And Of that total, 5.7 billion of it was actually funds from the CHIPS Act, which you might remember this was money that was allocated during the Biden administration. It was awarded to Intel. It's actually one of the reasons why I invested in Intel stock. Many others did too, because we thought these billions of dollars were going to be coming into Intel's business where they would be able to use that money to build and expand their foundry business and manufacturing infrastructure, but it was never actually paid out. And so now with this new deal, okay, finally that money is getting paid out to them. That's going to really help Intel's foundry business for sure. And then another 3 billion plus here is from separate government awards under a program to make secure chips. But yeah, the United States, I think, really got away with like a steal here because like for example, President Trump here says the United States paid nothing for these shares. And it's not necessarily nothing, but it was money that was already awarded, a lot of it. So it's kind of like, well, we were supposed to give them that money anyway, but this way we get back a lot of stock. And as he points out here, now those shares are valued at around $11 billion. So yeah, the government and Nvidia really came out as winners here just because of the stock skyrocketing. When looking at it here though, scrolling down a little bit further, what I want to mention is that the CHIPS Act was really meant to help Intel expand, and one of those expansion areas was in Ohio. And so you can see here from CNBC, Intel has been spending billions of dollars to build a series of chip factories in Ohio, an area that the company had previously called the Silicon Heartland, where Intel would be able to produce the most advanced chips, including for AI. But in July, the CEO said in a memo to employees that there would be no more blank checks and that it was slowing down the construction of its Ohio factory complex depending on market conditions. So they were very much halting their expansion plans. It was hurting their foundry business. Again, that was really becoming a headwind. But now with this new deal, it says here Intel's I can't get this. So it says Intel's Ohio factory is now scheduled to start operations in 2030. So again, a big part of this is because of the money coming from the government, the money coming from SoftBank, and now the more billions of dollars coming from Nvidia. Now, I don't think this really hurts many other companies. We do have a couple other stocks here like TSM, so Taiwan Semiconductor. They are positive for today, up about 2%. I don't think this really affects them too much. Maybe Intel becomes a bigger competitor, but it's going to be very much down the road. I always said I was buying Intel stock as a very long-term minded kind of investment. It's going to take many years until Intel can really compete with TSM, if they ever even, depending on how competitive they even get with them. It's more so just about the collaboration with Nvidia and how that benefits the companies. But when looking at like AMD stock is actually, so for today, it says that it's down 3%. The chart doesn't really show that to me. It looks like it's up today, but I don't know. It says here minus 3%. I'm guessing the market is selling it down a little bit because maybe this makes Intel more competitive on CPUs. And so because they'll be more heavily integrated with NVIDIA's technologies, that might make Intel CPUs more attractive, especially if there's like a complete package of the two. So maybe that hurts AMD in the future. Again, this is all stuff that's going to take a lot of time. AMD is on fire as a company. There's a lot of demand for AMD chips. So I don't necessarily think this hurts them, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't own stock in either of those other, AMD or TSM. But I do have NVIDIA and Intel. Are you guys buying any of these stocks? I'm up a lot on my positions, so I don't plan to buy anymore. NVIDIA, I'm up like over 1,000%. Intel, I'm up probably around 40 to 50% or so. So I'm just kind of holding what I have long term, and I don't plan on buying or selling at the moment. But let me know if you own Intel stock. Are you selling Intel stock? Are you cashing in these profits here? You might have some big profits here that you might want to cash in. I don't know. But for me, I'm just kind of holding what I have. But I will be keeping a close eye on it because maybe in the future, if I am up even more and I consider selling, I'll for sure update you guys on that. I'll make a video if I do decide to sell. But anyway, just wanted to give you guys this quick update. I have more videos coming out this weekend, so make sure you're subscribed. Thanks again for stopping by, my friends. I hope you're all doing well. Share your thoughts down below. I'll catch you in the next one. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.